Well, I just got done watching the AFC Championship game, and I have to say, the Colts, you look like you did not belong in the AFC Championship game. That was ugly. That was very ugly. And then the NFC Championship game was Green Bay. What the fuck was that? I mean, I've seen some epic meltdowns in my day, and I am a Giants fan, so yes, I have seen my epic meltdowns, but that was embarrassing. That was really, really embarrassing. And based on the two games, I would say if I had to pick a Super Bowl winner now, I'd go with the New England Patriots because they look like a well-oiled machine, and Seahawks look like they caught Green Bay napping. And I highly doubt they're going to catch Tom Brady and Bill Belichick napping. So unless something crazy happens, I'm pretty sure Tom Brady's going to get that 4th Super Bowl ring. But in any case, let's go into wrestling, because there were some things that happened in the WWE last week that I haven't touched up on yet. And I know I said I was going to do my top 10 favorite movies and my top 10 worst movies of 2014. That's going to be at the end of the video, obviously, but I got to get through all the wrestling stuff first, because, that's the point of the channel, right? Anyway, Randy Savage is going to the Hall of Fame. That's pretty cool. It's about damn time, right? It's so strange that it took this long for Savage to get in when you'd think he would have been, when they started doing the Hall of Fame again in 2004, I mean, you'd think that Savage would have been one of the earlier names picked. I mean, when they started doing guys like Hogan and Piper and guys like that, you would have thought that Savage would have been right in there with that class, and he would have gone in. And the fact that it took this long is just crazy to me. But it is cool that he's going in, and it's cool that Randy Savage is going to get honored appropriately. And and just getting that video package we got with him cutting all his promos, I mean, that right there was awesome to see. It's like, yeah, I miss Savage promos. His promos were so hilariously awesome. They were just so, I mean, he was one of a kind in so many ways, and just such a one of the greatest pro wrestlers of all time. He was just one of the best. Savage is just amazing. He had all the talent and ability of all the great workers of his era, and he had the same level of charisma as Hulk Hogan in my eyes. So he was probably the most well-rounded performer of the 80s. Again, that's my opinion. But so yeah, it's really cool that Randy Savage is going into the Hall. It's about time. Raw this week, for the most part, Daniel Bryan continues to be the best part of the show. I think he has great chemistry with Stephanie McMahon on the mic. Is that just me, or am I the one? Like, I enjoy his interactions with Stephanie more than his interactions with Triple H. It's just, I don't know why, they bounce off each other so well, and it usually creates some really great segments. Seth Rollins was once again awesome. In his segment, that closing segment was so good, and I mean, I don't know what their Mania plans are for Rollins, and as I've said before, they've got plenty of things they could do with him, but I think if you're looking for a top heel for WrestleMania 31, I think you gotta go with Seth. He's just good. He's really damn good. On the mic, in the ring, everything. He's just great, and that whole segment where he curb stomped Lesnar and stood tall over Cena and Lesnar was just amazing. It was amazing to see that they would put Seth Rollins up on that level. And I don't know who's walking out of the Royal Rumble with the belt, but if they have to take the title off of Lesnar for whatever reason, I think Seth would be the guy to go with. That's just me. It should not go to Cena. That's number one. And again, with Seth, I mean, there's other things they could do there. They could have him lose the three-way and then jump the winner and cash in his Money in the Bank and then win right after that anyway. Or you could have him hold both the title and the Money in the Bank briefcase, creating this extra danger with him where it's like, all right, if you want to take the title from him, you have to beat him twice. That's interesting. And there's a lot of things they could do. I don't know, the more I think about it, maybe they should just have Rollins win the belt and do Bryan versus Rollins at WrestleMania. That would actually be very cool. But yeah, as long as it's not Cena who walks out with the belt, I think we'll be okay. But speaking about guys that they want to put the belt on, Roman Reigns is just not working, and his promos are getting worse. Like, I cannot listen to the dude talk anymore, and it's scary to think that they want him to be John Cena, because that's clearly what they're doing with these promos, where it's like they want him to be John Cena, where a few years ago, especially when Batista and Cena were the two guys that were being made into the top stars, it was clear as day that WWE wanted to turn them into The Rock. And Vince wanted them to be like the new versions of The Rock. And he tried to mold them into that. And now we're at a point where it's like every babyface that comes along, it's like they have to have elements of John Cena in them. And Roman Reigns, I mean, this is the most obvious. It's kind of happened with Dean Ambrose a little bit. Those psychiatrist segments were bad, were really bad. It's just through no fault of Dean Ambrose. It's just they keep writing shit for him. I mean, you can be the most talented performer in the world, but if they give you shit to work with, you're fucked. It doesn't really matter. I'm sorry, there was another babyface I was thinking of. Sheamus kind of has John Cena qualities a little bit. CM Punk, when he first won the title from Del Rio in 2011, and the early days of his babyface run, he kind of turned into like a mini Cena, and that was... thank God that feud with Jericho happened, because it kind of pulled him out of that, but that started to happen there for a bit. So, it's scary to think that they want to mold somebody like Roman Reigns into a John Cena-like character. It's not good. I just don't think Roman has evolved enough to be in that main event spot. I just don't think he's the guy right now. I'm not completely souring on him, and I'm not saying he's a lost cause, and I'm not saying he can't contribute to the show, but it's just not working. I mean, they clearly want to strap the rocket pack to him and shoot him to the moon, and it's just not... It's not clicking right now, and the promos are getting lousy. The fan reaction to him has gone way down. It's not working. It's not working, and I think if he wins the Royal Rumble, I think you're going to have a repeat of last year's event, where the fans are going to completely turn on it and just be upset that Daniel Bryan didn't win. But we'll see. It's one of those things. We'll see. The Royal Rumble is this Sunday, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think I pretty much just previewed the pay-per-view because... as far as I know, there aren't many other matches set in stone. I think the only one is the tag title match, it's Usos versus Miz and Mizdow. We've seen that match like 40 fucking times already, so, whatever. Other wrestling stuff that happened. This past episode of NXT I wanted to bring special attention to because it was their first show on Wednesday night, so it was clear that they were trying to spice it up a little bit. Not do a full-fledged special, but they did bring a little bit more to this episode than they usually do on their weekly shows. We got Finn Balor versus Tyson Kidd, which was a really good match. We got a Divas tag match. It was Charlotte and Natalya versus Sasha and Becky Lynch, and it was a pretty solid match. And you got the main event rematch of Adrian Neville versus Sami Zayn for the title, which was very, very good. And thank God it was not the same fucking match that they had at TakeOver spot. Because I've seen so many repeat matches where they just do cookie cutter, repeat all the same spots that they did in the last match at Cena and Orton. That definitely comes to mind. But they told a different story this time around. And there was actually a split second there where I thought Adrian might win the title back, which would have that would have been a heartbreaker. But no, it was just a very good match. It was nowhere near the classic they had at TakeOver, but it was a really good match on its own, and just a nice, strong main event. And Kevin Owens came out and beat up Sami Zayn, and they're setting up that match. And from what I've heard, the next TakeOver special is going to be in February, so that's going to be cool. We got to see another one of those, and I'm sure NXT is going to hit it out of the park like they always do. The one thing that they did on this episode, and this is why I'm mentioning it, and I wanted to bring special attention to it, the Bull Dempsey versus Baron Corbin match. Now, this is a feud that I thought that they've built up fairly well. It's just two big bruiser guys that beat people in 10 seconds, and they're just bruisers, and the idea is all right, you have these two seemingly unbeatable guys, you throw them in the ring together, what'll happen? And my thought was, okay, either Corbin is going to beat Bull in 10 seconds, or they're going to have a full-fledged, really good power match with each other, and it's going to be a really awesome match. And maybe this is just me coming off of Ishii and Makabe from New Japan, from Wrestle Kingdom, but this match kind of sucked. I mean, it was, I don't know. This was their chance to really do something cool with Baron Corbin and really have him step outside his comfort zone a little bit, and he did not look good doing it. It's the match, they just kind of bumbled around for a little bit, and then he hit end of days. And that was it. And granted, him being able to hit end of days on Bull Dempsey was pretty impressive because of the way Bull is built and everything. But I just didn't think the match was particularly impressive. It just, and not because it was short. Some people are complaining about that. I would have been fine with a short match. It's just there wasn't anything in it that captured what was built up. And what was built up was these two really roughneck guys that are going to clash and beat the hell out of each other. This was just kind of a just pedestrian match where they didn't really do anything cool, and I was like, okay, that was it. And this is really the first time that NXT has built something up, and I felt like the payoff didn't deliver. So I wanted to bring it up because I don't want people to think that I'm just this blindly loyal, NXT is great and everything they do is awesome type of guy. I'm like, if they do something I don't like, I'm going to say it. And this is the first time, really, that they've done something that I thought, yeah, that kind of sucked. I didn't care for that too much. But, they can't all be winners, I guess. But, I just wanted to bring attention to that. But, other wrestling stuff, I'm still watching TNA Impact on Destination America. The second episode was better than the first one, but they still got some issues. And I feel like they have like 18 heel stables now. They've got MVP's group, they've got James Storm's group, they've got the Bromans and the Beautiful People, they've got there was one other one I was thinking of, wasn't there? I don't know. I don't even know anymore. I lost track. They need to and I guess Eric Young is going to be playing the Bret Hart of MVP's group, and that joke is that Bret Hart, when he went to WCW, they kept doing this thing with him where he wasn't officially in the NWO, not officially, but he always hung out with them and helped them win matches. So it was like, okay, so is he in the NWO or not? And it's almost like the writers didn't even know whether or not Bret was in the NWO. And they're kind of doing that with EY, where it's like, yeah, no, he's not in MVP's group, but he's with them all the time. He cuts promos with them. He helps them in beatdowns. How is he not in the group? Okay, sure. That's the thing. But EC3 continues to be great. I think he's fantastic. And the Hardys and the Wolves had a great tag match on the show last week. Where Jeff Hardy did this tightrope spot where he walked across and dove across the ring, and that was pretty amazing. So at least you got one really good match out of it, and that was just a really good tag match, and I was happy to see it. But hopefully some of the production things that TNA is doing with the show have freshened it up at least a little bit. The lighting is really weird, where they have the lights turned off on the crowd to put all the illumination on the ring. That looks a little strange, but other things they're doing, like going back to EC3, like having him taunt JB through the production team, I thought was really creative and cool. And, they're doing a few other little things like that, especially with camera angles and stuff like that. So, but they need to fix the booking a little bit, but it is what it is. And Lucha Underground, they had another very strong episode this week where they did their first ever title match with Prince Puma defending against Phoenix, and that was a hell of a match. Just really, really good athletic match. And throughout the show, they introduced Cage with three other wrestlers. It was I'm trying to remember who it all was. Aerostar and Helico, and there was one other guy. I'm sorry, I forget his name. But they opened up the show with this four-way where it's three high flyers and Cage, who's this big bruiser power guy. And everybody in this match came off looking great. And Helico did this really big over-the-top turnbuckle dive that he did, where he ran across the ring and just dove over the turnbuckle and the ring post and dove onto everybody outside of the ring. That looked amazing. But everybody came off looking really good, but Cage looked like this really good, like, powerhouse, bruiser type of guy. And he was like, oh, man, this guy looks really good. I'm like, this is a good power guy. Maybe he's kind of like, because right now Ezekiel Jackson, Big Rick, is kind of that guy. And, I think I made the comment last week. It's like they could probably do better than him, but he's fine for now. I think Cage might replace Ezekiel Jackson as their main power guy. Because he looked great in this match and did very, very well. And it set up the end of the show where Puma retained the title, and then Cage came out and attacked him afterwards. So it's like, all right, so this episode set up a new top heel. I kind of like it. So, yeah, Lucha Underground continues to be fun, continues to be solid, and I like having it around, and it makes me happy. So, yeah, that's all the wrestling stuff going on for now. Like I said, we got Royal Rumble coming up on Sunday, so it will be interesting to see what they do with that. I am going to try and review it early next week. I'm going to be busy with a couple of things, and when you see the video, you'll know why I was so busy. But, yeah, that's wrestling side of things. That's it for now. Let's jump into all the movie stuff that I wanted to talk about. Now, since I spent most of last year talking about movies and reviewing movies, and the Oscar list just came out and the Golden Globes just happened, so it feels appropriate that I should do something like a best and worst list of the movies of 2014, and talking about my favorite movies from last year and my least favorite movies from last year. And when I say least favorite, that's really a nice way of saying the movies I fucking hated from last year, and there were quite a few. But, yeah, so I thought I'd go ahead and do that list, but keep in mind that these lists are made entirely from the films that I saw last year. So if there's a movie you really liked that's not on my list, and if there's a movie that you really hated that's not on my list, keep in mind there's a real good chance I didn't see them. I've heard American Sniper is really good. I've heard The Imitation Game is very good. I've heard Nightcrawler is very good. I did not see any of those movies. I've heard movies like Annabelle were really bad. I did not see Annabelle. I did not want to see Annabelle because I knew it was dog shit. So I was not surprised to hear the negative reaction that it got. And it was... but yeah, I can't fully judge it if I didn't see it. So keep that in mind when you get my lists. But let's go into the negative films right off the bat. And starting at number 10... Maleficent. Now, this was a movie that I was initially looking forward to. The problem is that while I am a big fan of the Sleeping Beauty film that Disney made, I love that film. It was one of my favorites when I was a kid, and it still is one of my more favorite Disney animated films. The problem is that this movie did not do anything to work within the framework of that film, and because of it, the story doesn't make any sense. And actually, it feels like this movie was written by this diehard Maleficent fan that got to publish like the most glorifying fan fiction you could possibly imagine that was clearly using Maleficent as a writer's pet type of character, where it's like she's just super awesome and everything she does is awesome and she's the only thing that matters in the story and blah blah blah, when really they could have told the story of the original animated film that Disney made through her point of view, which, yeah, that's wicked, but I still feel like they could have done something with that, and it could have been interesting, and at the very least, you could have gotten a live-action telling of that original film. We didn't get anything like that, and it just feels like a big missed opportunity. The acting itself isn't that terrible. Angelina Jolie isn't the problem. Now, the guy who played the king, he was pretty shitty, but when you're working with this story that makes all the characters look like idiots, especially the fairies, who I thought were the main characters in the animated film, and here they're just treated like a second-rate Three Stooges. That was awful, and it just feels like the whole movie was written with the intention of making everybody look stupid except for Maleficent. And she's the only one that's super awesome and everything. And by doing that, they're actually doing the character a disservice. Because you're not being true to what the original character was all about. You're just kind of making up your own crap. And, yeah, I didn't like it. But, speaking of not liking things, number 9, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, this movie was not as bad as I thought it would be. It's not even the worst Ninja Turtles film. I sat through Ninja Turtles 3, so there you go. That said, it's still not very good, and I know Michael Bay was a producer on this, but his fingerprints are all over it, from the pacing to the action scenes to the way the turtles are handled, which, by the way, their designs are hideous. They are hideous. That is the ugliest the Ninja Turtles have ever looked. To the pacing of the story and everything else, I mean, this movie has Michael Bay's fingerprints all over it. The acting is terrible, and Megan Fox isn't even the worst one. I mean, the worst one might have been Will Arnett, which pains me to say that because I usually think he's really funny, but he was not in this film. He was awful. I just watched BoJack Horseman on Netflix, and it's really good and really funny, so I don't know what happened here with Will, but okay, sure. The only good parts in the movie are the moments where they're able to capture the interactions between the turtles, and where they do kind of feel like brothers. And there's a scene on the elevator that really does that well. And those moments are few and far between, but when they do happen, they do remind you of why the Ninja Turtles are charming and why they've been as everlasting as they have been. And, it is what it is. But this film was not very good. It just wasn't very good. And, that original live-action film from 1990 is still the best movie adaptation of the Ninja Turtles, which I'm happy to say that was the first movie I ever saw in theaters. The second movie I ever saw in theaters, the DuckTales movie, which nobody remembers, but it was awesome. I love the DuckTales movie. So, yeah, I wanted childhood. Ninja Turtles, DuckTales, my first two movies. That's awesome. But this movie was not awesome, and I don't want the Ninja Turtles to continue in this direction. Like I said, it wasn't the worst version of the Ninja Turtles that's ever been made. I remember the Next Mutation, that whole show. That was fucking atrocious. But for what it's worth, this film was just, it just didn't work. Let's just hold off on doing another Ninja Turtles movie and then try and figure something else out in a few years, because this was just not good. But number 8, The Legend of Hercules. Now, it's hard to believe that in 1 year we got 2 bad film versions of Hercules. Granted, the one with The Rock in it was actually the better of the two, and this version, The Legend of Hercules, makes the Rock version look like a masterpiece by comparison. This one was awful. The acting, the sets, the pacing, the plot, all of it was just bad. It was just an ineptly made film, just from start to finish. Just they literally did nothing right. And check it out. It is kind of funny in how bad it is, but it just wasn't a good movie. And it's hard to believe that you can get 2 bad movies about the same character in 1 year, but this one was worse. Number 7 on my list, Dracula Untold. Now, if you know me, you know I'm a big monster movie fan, and I love the Universal classic monster movies with Bela Lugosi's Dracula and Frankenstein and the Wolfman and all those greats. So the fact that Dracula is in so many shitty movies now, like, it seems like every time they try to bring Dracula back, it just turns into shit. I sat through Dracula 2000 and wanted to just take a goddamn tank and just roll it right through the silver screen and just destroy the whole damn thing because I was so upset over it. The last good Dracula movie I saw was Bram Stoker's Dracula, and even that one's far from perfect. But it's just depressing that every time Hollywood tries to bring Dracula back, they keep fucking it up this badly. And this is supposed to be the prequel to show how Dracula became Dracula. And to me, Dracula works better when there's a mystique around him, because it's ambiguous how old he really is, and you don't really know how many hundreds or even thousands of years that this character's been around, or what he's seen and what he's done. And to show how he became that kind of takes away the mystique a little bit. And that's just part of the movie that I didn't like. And the fact that it's just a soulless kind of action movie with Lord of the Rings rip-off battle scenes and, just dumb stuff like that. It just wasn't a very good portrayal of Dracula, and it feels like there aren't many good portrayals of Dracula anymore, especially in cinema. And that upsets me and makes, it's not fair, because Dracula he's one of the movie monster greats. He should get better treatment than that. But, I'm not going to hold my breath at this point. Number 6 on my list is The Nut Job. And in a year where you got so many good kids movies, from How to Train Your Dragon 2 and Big Hero 6 and the Muppet movie, I would throw that up there. Was there another one that came out? Pixar didn't have a movie this year, but you have good options for kids movies out there, and especially in the CGI animated realm, there seems to be a pretty good standard for them. And here, excuse me, But here you get the nut job, which is just pop culture references and it's just stupid. It's just really, really stupid. It makes me sad to think that kids would go see this movie and just walk out of it with, like... I feel like this is the type of movie that would make kids dumber. And it's just garbage, and thank God it bombed, because I checked it out, not in theaters. I just checked it out just out of pure curiosity to see if it's really as bad as it looked. And oh boy, it was every bit as bad as it looked, and maybe worse. I'm just happy it bombed, and that there seems to be a pretty solid standard for kids' movies these days, which is really good. Good to see. I mean, I'm not saying Big Hero 6 was perfect. It wasn't, but... and I'm not saying How to Train Your Dragon 2 was perfect either, but at least they were good enough. At least they were good. At least they attempted to be epic stories and good for kids and everything, so there's that. Number 5 on my list, which is actually the 5th one, it's in its own franchise. Paranormal Activity, The Marked Ones. This franchise needs to die. It needs to stop. You have jumped the shark. There is no reason to keep making Paranormal Activity films. I was on board with the first 3 movies because I thought there was a grand plan in place and a bigger story that was going to have a payoff. There is not. They are just making this crap up as they go. This movie was awful, and this franchise needs to just die. It's a horror franchise that's overstayed its welcome. It needs to stop. There's no more milk to be gotten from this cow. It's over. It's fucking over. Please stop. This movie, it wasn't scary. The story makes no sense. It was stupid. It was just bad. It was just really, really bad. And I just stop making Paranormal Activities films, please. It's over. It's done. Number 4 on my list, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Don't you miss the days when Spider-Man 3 was the worst Spider-Man movie? I miss those days. Those were good days. But now we're at a point where they rebooted the franchise, and then, whatever you thought of that first movie, and I personally did not like that last movie because I thought it borrowed way too much from the original Raimi film. I mean, that was the one criticism I had of it that nobody else seemed to, is that they kind of sort of made the same movie as the first Raimi film, and I could even do like a drinking game with it, where they hit the same beats as the first Raimi film. But you get into this movie, and it has so many goddamn plot lines, none of which have a satisfying conclusion. So many characters, so many just shit going on, and it's all centered on this Peter Parker who is just obnoxious and stupid. I mean, he looks up science tips on YouTube. What the fuck? I mean, I thought Peter was supposed to be smart. What the fuck is this? The romance with Gwen is insipid and just annoying, because they keep like breaking up and getting back together and breaking up and getting back together, and then she's going to Oxford with that office in New York. I didn't know Oxford had an office in New York, but okay, whatever. And Peter acts like an obnoxious idiot throughout the entire thing, and then you get the whole story with Harry, and none of that makes any fucking sense. And then you get Electro, and okay, he was stupid. And the way he becomes Electro was really stupid, and ultimately he doesn't serve much of a purpose anyway. But the movie was just dumb. It was just a really, really dumb movie. And in a year where comic book movies did pretty well for the most part, I mean, Captain America 2 was great. Fox saved the X-Men franchise with Days of Future Past. I mean, that movie pretty much fixed any problem that the X-Men film franchise had, except Rogue. They still haven't fixed Rogue yet, but whatever. But other than that, X-Men Days of Future Past, they're doing a very good job and really saved the franchise with it. And then you get Guardians of the Galaxy, the C-Team joining the A-list. I mean, that movie was great too. So how is it that the comic book movie with the biggest star in it could suck this bad? Like, it was awful. It was shockingly bad. And, I hope that Spidey winds up in the hands of Marvel Studios again, because that's where he needs to go. Sony, I don't want them to touch another Spider-Man movie. You've done all you can with this character. It's over. It's done. Let Marvel have him, and they can put him in the Infinity War, and it'll be great and wonderful. And maybe even put him into Civil War. That'd be cool. But, just stop. Just stop. You fucked up Spider-Man. Just stop. But that moves right along to number 3 on my list. Transformers: Age of Extinction. This franchise needs to die. It needs to stop. And I love Transformers. I grew up with the G1 cartoon. I watched Beast Wars in the 90s. I love the original Transformers animated movie. It's one of my favorite animated movies of all time. It was the first movie that made me cry. And, I know that sounds weird, but when you're 4 years old and your hero is taken from you, it's going to get a pretty big emotional reaction. So, this movie, I mean, my God, it's the worst of the franchise, I think. I think it's by far the worst, because the first movie is not bad. And I've defended that first movie. It's like, look, it has its Michael Bay-isms, but it's not the worst thing ever. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying it's not the worst thing ever. 2 and 3 are so bombastically stupid that they're kind of funny in how inept and dumb they are. Like, okay, Revenge of the Fallen is a piece of shit, but you need to see it because it's just something to behold. And I feel like you're getting a psychological evaluation of Michael Bay in the process. But this fourth movie, it was boring. I mean, it was boring. This movie, broke my soul almost in how boring it was. At 2.5 hours, I don't think I've seen a movie go that long and say so little. I mean, because it was just one action set piece after another. The story never made any sense. The movie has 6 MacGuffins. There's Transformium, which is the element that the Transformers are made out of, which, yes, Transformium. That's cute. It's almost as good as Unobtainium. Which, goddamn. But, so there's all that going on. There's the chase for Optimus Prime, so I guess Optimus Prime is kind of a MacGuffin all its own. And you got this character following that character, and you've got this thing going on, and humans are building their own Transformers that aren't really Transformers because they morph, and Megatron is still alive. Sure, and he turns into Galvatron, because sure. And Bumblebee has a clone too, even though they don't do anything with the clone, and the Dinobots randomly show up at the end. I have no idea where the fuck they came from. There's some talk about the Transformers creators, though they don't say shit about who they are, where they are, what they want, or whatever. What the fuck ever. I don't even know anymore. This movie just broke me. It was just a fucking mess. And you're getting a 5th one because this movie had a huge opening weekend and made a lot of money, so we're getting another one. I can't imagine there are still people that get excited over these movies, like, we need to see the next one, let's go see Transformers. But this is another franchise that it really needs to die. It needs to stop. And as a Transformers fan, it just hurts even more, because it's like, look, what is going on here? Like, why does this need to continue? I know why, money, but can we at least flush out all the filmmakers that are making these movies and just go in a different direction and make better movies? Can we at least do that? Can we add Guillermo del Toro to make a Transformers movie? I'd be on board with that. I mean, he made Pac Rim. He did pretty well with robots. I'd love to see his take on the Autobots and Decepticons. Just start from scratch, start anew. Can we do that at least? Probably not. But, this movie was just awful. And I think on most people's lists, it'll probably be 1 or 2 on how bad it was. Because it was shockingly just the most... This movie just dared you to sit through the whole thing. Because it was so boring and so convoluted that it was a chore to sit through, to say the least. But moving on to number 2, speaking of ruining things that I love and going back to the Universal monster films, Frankenstein. All I'm going to say about this is that when it first came out, it had a 0 rating on Rotten Tomatoes, fully deserved. It hurts to see one of my favorite cinematic monster icons get disrespected again. And Bride of Frankenstein was my favorite of that classic Universal monster movie library. So to see the Frankenstein monster turn into this crap just upsets me greatly. And it's just awful to me and offends me in so many ways. And goddamn. All I'm going to say is that I'm pissed off at everyone that had a hand in making this. And Aaron Eckhart, you're better than this. You should not be in movies like this. You are way better than this. But this was just a piece of shit. It was awful, and thank God it got the negative reaction that it deserved, both financially and critically. And then we move on to my number one most hated movie of the year. Speaking of something that ruined things that I love, Draft Day. Now, I thought that this movie was going to be kind of the NFL's version of Moneyball. And one of my favorite films to come out in the last few years was Moneyball. I love that movie. I thought it was great. And I thought you could have done like a football-ish version of Moneyball with this film. Because the NFL drafting process is really fascinating and is really interesting and creates a lot of analytical discussion on who should go where and who should pick up who and all this other stuff. And you didn't get any of that in this film. What you got was like this really dumb setup with sexual tension between Kevin Costner and Jennifer Gardner, because that needs to be there for whatever reason. And all the owners and GMs of the Cleveland Browns and the coaches and everything trying to make their draft. And the way they go about making their picks are just so stupid. Like, Costner's character will make a move, like a trade or something, and then he'll start asking all these questions about whether or not it's a good idea to get that guy. And I'm like, dude, you're the one that made the move. I mean, shouldn't you have been asking all these questions before you made that move? And it just didn't feel like a legitimate representation of what the draft process really is like. And some of the things they ask about these players, to me, are things they should have already known about them from the combine and just doing basic research on these guys. And even, like, there was that one thing that they did where the guy got, I'm trying to remember, he got suspended for throwing the ball into the crowd, and that made him, like, draft poison or whatever, and nobody wanted to touch him. And it turns out that the reason he threw the ball into the crowd is that he was giving it to his sick grandmother or something. And it was like, oh, he's really a nice guy and everything. I'm like, there is no way that the media wouldn't have picked up on that story, because that would have been a controversy. That this player got suspended for giving a ball to his sick grandmother. And there's no way that that wouldn't have caught on in the media. And that the GMs and everything wouldn't have already known about that and taking that into consideration. So that's the level of stupid that we're dealing with on this in this movie. And again, piling on the sexual tension between Jennifer Garner and Kevin Costner and their characters, because that needs to be there for whatever goddamn reason. But this movie was just stupid, and it's shocking that the NFL had a hand in making this, because they used guys from the NFL Network in the coverage. They used all the team names and logos. NFL definitely had to put their stamp of approval on this crap, and it was crap. And it was, as a football fan and as someone who follows the draft, this was just infuriating. It was not an accurate representation of the draft at all, and it was just dumb. It was just stupid, and goddamn, they probably would have been better off just making a documentary about the draft, because that would have been way more interesting. You could have gotten stories like the RG3 trade, or the Manning and Ryan Leaf thing, or drafting LaDainian Tomlinson, or Brady being drafted in the 6th round, or Eli being drafted first overall and then switching teams, and all sorts of other things that they could have done to tell this story, to paint the picture of what the draft is really like. And they didn't do any of that. They just told this really, really dumb story that really doesn't accurately represent how the draft is supposed to go anyway. The only thing about this movie I liked was Frank Langella's performance as the fictional owner of the Cleveland Browns, because he was clearly channeling Al Davis, and it was hilarious. And, if you're a Raiders fan, I don't know, you probably had a love-hate relationship with Al. I'm not entirely sure, but Al was a national treasure to the rest of us, because to say he was a wild card was an understatement. He was he was all his own. He was one of a kind, and Frank Langella definitely captured that at least a little bit in his performance. He was really the only thing I liked about the movie. Everything else was just dumb and stupid, and the more I think about it, the more that movie just pissed me off the most. So that's my pick for my most hated movie of 2014. And I think the worst part about the movies that I hated from 2014 and the ones that comprised my top 10 most hated films list is that a lot of them stem from things that I loved as a kid. And, like, I love the original animated Sleeping Beauty. I love the Universal monster movies. I love football. I'm a huge football fan. I love Spider-Man. I love, all of those things. Transformers, another big one. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, another big one. And to see so many things from my childhood get treated so poorly and represented so poorly, that just really got under my skin and really upset me. And that seemed to be a trend with a lot of the bad movies that came out this year. But there were a lot of really, really good movies this year, too. And some of them really did stem from things that I loved as a kid. So without further ado, let's jump into the movies I really, really liked from 2014. My top 10 favorite movies from 2014. Starting at number 10, this one might seem a little weird. I'm not sure how many people saw this movie, but Chef, which is a film written, directed, and starring Jon Favreau. Basically, it's a story of this genius chef who is trying to find his place in the world and trying to find the proper way to showcase his talents, because he finds himself in this restaurant that really holds him back and really restricts him and forces him to use their menu, and he's not allowed to be creative, and he's trying to find a place, or he's trying to find a way that he can explore his creativity and really showcase his talents as a chef while also repairing his family life as well. So he's like on this, the whole movie is basically him on this mission to repair both his personal life and his professional life. And it's just a simple story, but it's engaging, and it's well acted for the most part as well. They got a pretty good cast to be in there. Robert Downey Jr. has a cameo, and Scarlett Johansson has a cameo, and Sofia Vergara plays his ex-wife, and John Leguizamo has a part in it, and it's actually a pretty good cast, and they're very likable too, and it's just a really fun, lighthearted, likable film. It's not gonna change the world or anything, but it was just an enjoyable experience. And I think the thing about the movie that really sticks out to me is any scene where they show Jon Favreau's character cooking. You will get hungry if you watch this movie, because everything he cooks just looks like a masterpiece. And I was like, man, I wish I could reach up and just grab that thing out of the screen right now, because I'm just so hungry. And oh my god, it looks so good. It looks really, really good. There's also a scene in this movie where he flips out at a critic, and it goes viral and everything. And that scene was that was a really powerful scene, I thought. It just really shows, how easy it is to insult somebody that really works hard on things that he dedicates his life to, and to have somebody just rip it apart right in front of him. It's kind of how much that can really hurt. And I don't know, that scene was really powerful to me. But yeah, Chef, I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure how many people saw it, but check it out. I think it's worth a look. Number 9, Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel, which is a movie that got nominated for a shitload of things, so I don't need to praise it all that much. It is very, very good, and I'm typically not a huge fan of Wes Anderson's work, but this one, it was brisk, it was fun, it was a little offbeat, and it was funny in parts. The cast, again, is very, very good. You got John Goldblum in there. I love the interaction between the two main characters. And their relationship, and it's just a good, fun time. That's really the set pieces are fantastic. It's a nice little film. I think it's just a good caper and everything, and just very, very good all around, and just a lot of fun. And of course, I'm not surprised I got nominated for so much stuff, because so much of it is very, very good. And it was just a very enjoyable film. Might even be my favorite Wes Anderson film to date. I don't know. It's just more offbeat and a little bit, and like I said, the pacing is very brisk, and it just moves very quickly. The music is also very good, and I heard that the music was nominated, which I'm not surprised, because the music was very, very good in this film. And it was just great. I really enjoyed it. Number 8 on my list is X-Men Days of Future Past, which, again, I've already talked about how Fox kind of fixed the franchise with this film. And there are things to nitpick in this movie. My biggest one was that Bishop wasn't in the movie nearly enough. My sister's biggest one is the fact that, it was so funny, she saw the movie and literally she said, they have fixed everything with the X-Men film franchise except for Rogue. Fuck me, because Rogue's her favorite. So it's like, that's the one thing they haven't fixed. It's fucking Rogue. But anyway, aside from all the nitpicks and everything, this movie is very, very good. And I think it's easily the best X-Men movie to date. It does the best job of showcasing the mutants' powers. It does the best job of showcasing the conflict between mutants and humans. I think what they're fighting for is very good, jumping back and forth between the past and the present. Or, well, I guess the past and the future, because it's not our present. But all of that is pretty well done, and it was a great way to get both the original film trilogy cast and the cast from First Class, or at least the best members of both casts, together in this movie and to combine them. And just very, very satisfying if you were an X-Men fan. And really, almost everybody gets a chance to shine. I thought Jennifer Lawrence was great as Mystique. I thought James McAvoy was great as Professor X. And him getting to interact with Patrick Stewart was also very cool. The guy who plays Beast, I'm sorry, I forget his name. He was great as young Beast. Excuse me. Whoever it was that played Quicksilver, he was great, and he kind of stole the show, and he didn't do much, but he kind of stole the show. Of course, it did create the plot hole. It's like, wait a minute. I don't know if you would call it a plot hole, but it does seem kind of silly that this guy can literally tap bullets out of the way, and you don't bring him along on the mission to stop somebody from getting shot. I don't know. I think he could have made that whole thing easy for you, but whatever. But like I said, nitpicks aside, I did think that this movie was very exciting, very good, and made me excited for future X-Men films. And I'll tell you right off the bat, I can't wait to see what they do with Apocalypse. That's going to be great. And, it's like, man, they've got me excited for X-Men movies again, which after the X-Men Origins movie with Wolverine, I mean, I thought I was like, okay, I'm done with these X-Men movies. We're done. It's over. No more. And slowly but surely, they've won my faith back, and this last one just has me fully on board with the X-Men again. So here's hoping that Apocalypse really delivers, because Bryan Singer's return to the franchise was really... it was really a home run, and I think there's more room to do some more cool stuff, namely with Apocalypse. So here's hoping. It's going to be very good. Number 7 on my list is another comic book-based film, Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, where this film really shines is the interactions of the characters. It's not so much the story, and it's not so much like the villain or the main conflict or anything like that. Where it really shines is in the characters and their interactions. Just watching... to me, the best scenes in the movie are the scenes with the Guardians sitting around and just talking to each other. And playing off of each other and telling jokes and making speeches and all that other stuff. Because all of them are just great characters. And they all have very distinct and different personalities. So to have them all these misfits... join together, form a team, and then have all these discussions with each other and stuff. It's just really funny and engaging, and it was just one of the more entertaining films of the year. It was funny, it was action-packed, it was great, it was just great all around. And it was one of those things, again, to play off the strengths of the characters, where you could probably go down the street and ask 100 different people who their favorite Guardian is, and you'd probably get a different answer every single time. Now, granted, my favorite is Rocket Raccoon, but because I love pissed off little short guys that are sarcastic. I mean, that's just appealing to me. It's why I like Joe Pesci. But it was just a really entertaining movie. And speaking as a wrestling fan, who the fuck knew that Batista was that entertaining? I mean, I didn't know that he had that in him, so it makes you wonder, like, what happened in this last run in the WWE where he was terrible? I mean, it's just, I guess the WWE really is just that bad, or Marvel is just really, really that good. But Guardians of the Galaxy, this was just a fantastic movie, and I loved it. And really, again, I wasn't sure what to expect out of this film, because you are dealing with they were the C-Team guys. Not every general moviegoer knows who the Guardians are. But I think that helped them be fresh. I think it was like, oh, here's a fresh fresh property being presented to a whole new audience, and it was very successful. Obviously, I think it was the highest grossing movie of the year. So, yeah, I can't wait to see the Guardians come back and see what they do there. I'm sure they'll play a part in the Infinity War, and I know that there's a sequel lined up. So, okay, I'm on board. Sure, bring it on. Number 6 on my list is my pick for the best animated film of the year, and it was the one that was snubbed by the Oscars, and social media let them know it. But the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie, I'm going to ask this question from now until eternity. Where the fuck did this movie come from? Because if you had told me in 2013 that one of my favorite movies of 2014 would be the Lego Movie, I would have called you a damn liar. But this movie was so smart and so funny and so creative, and really captured the fun of what it was like to play with Legos and the type of imagination that goes hand in hand with playing with Legos. And there were so many great characters too. I mean, this is one of the few movies I can think of where this movie has so many characters, like so many characters, and I loved all of them. There was not one character on this list in the entire cast that wasn't entertaining or wasn't fun to follow. It was just, there were so many that I just really, really liked. I loved Good Cop, Bad Cop. I loved Barry the Astronaut. I loved Lord Business, and I loved Princess Unikitty, and I loved this version of Batman. I mean, the Lego Movie is a very good Batman movie. I must say, Will Arnett as Batman, he was really funny and just really good. One of the best Batman movies ever made. Yeah, it was just a really entertaining movie with so many jokes and so many references and so many it was just a smartly written, fast-paced film that was very creative and really caught a lot of people by surprise. And it was very, very good. What could have been just a cheap toy product placement movie ended up being one of the most entertaining movies of the year. And kudos to everyone that worked on it, because they had to have been working with, like, knowing that people weren't going to expect much out of it. And what we ended up getting was a very nice surprise. But now we're getting into the top 5. My number 5 favorite movie of the year was Birdman, which it was also nominated for everything and looks to be the likely pick to win a lot of the Oscars this year, namely Best Picture, Best Actor for Michael Keaton, and various other things. What I really liked about this film, number one, I love the way it was shot, and everybody talked about that. And that was the one thing that everybody, the first thing that everybody talked about when seeing this movie, the way it was shot, that single shot look, where the whole movie looks like one continuous take. And it just kind of, there's so many different ways you can read into that. Part of me felt like that was the perfect way to capture the backstage atmosphere of putting on a stage show, which is what the movie's about. So I felt like it captured that atmosphere, because I have been, when I was in school and stuff, and, whatever. Now, I never had the guts to perform on stage or anything, but I remember being backstage at certain things, and just kind of the hectic atmosphere that goes around in school plays and shit. So I can't imagine what it's like being on, like, Broadway or off-Broadway plays or something where, you're doing this professionally, and that type of hectic atmosphere. And I thought the single shot approach really captured that. At the same time, I also feel like shooting the film that way really captured the mindset of the main character, Michael Keaton, who's this actor that was defined by his role in a superhero film back in the day. Gee, I wonder what they're referencing there. And how he's kind of been defined by that role, and he wants to succeed on his own without the Birdman, without that Birdman character. I want to succeed on my own, so he's producing and directing his own play to hopefully gain recognition beyond just being that character that he played decades ago. And I feel like that single shot, that single take look kind of captures the one-track mind of and kind of the hectic nature of that character, and really plays into his whole, like, deteriorating mental state throughout the film. And I don't know, again, I don't know what the director intended with that, but it's just like, these are the things that I got out of it while watching the movie. And some people have interpreted it different ways. The ending of the movie, people have interpreted in different ways. Mine, to me, was more of a downer ending, but other people took it as more of a happy ending. So it really depends on how you look at it and what you want to get out of it, which I really like. I like that level of ambiguity where sparks discussion and sparks debates and stuff like that about the film. And the other actors in the film are mostly very good. Edward Norton was like a force of nature as his character. I was like, oh my god, this guy could almost get his own movie. I mean, this character is just what an asshole, but he's so great. But yeah, Birdman. Yeah, this is the movie that's probably going to win Best Picture this year, and it's nice to actually feel like I'm on par with the Academy for once, where it's like, this is a very good film, and it does deserve to win Best Picture, and it is it's just very good. And I'm happy for Michael Keaton that he's getting recognition for this, because I've always felt that Michael Keaton is a very good actor. I think he's the best actor to ever play Batman. I know Christian Bale gets thrown out there a lot, but when you talk like this for most of the movie, it's really hard to take you seriously as Batman. I felt like Michael Keaton did a better job of having this quiet confidence about Batman. While also, as Bruce Wayne, he looks and acts in a way that would never raise suspicion that he's Batman. And that's why he's the perfect Batman. And that's why he's such a great Bruce Wayne. And, he was also in a movie with Nicole Kidman back in the 90s, and I really wish I could remember the title of it. But his performance in that film broke my heart when I first saw it. And Michael Keaton is a very good actor, but he's always kind of known for his kind of larger-than-life cartoon roles, like Batman and like Beetlejuice and things like that, which we're getting a Beetlejuice too. Hooray. That'll be worth it. But it is nice to see Michael Keaton get recognition for this role and recognition as an actor, because I've always felt like he was a really good actor, and it's nice to see him get, praised as such. So, yeah, that's really good. And Birdman, I thought it was a very good film. Very, very, very good film. Number 4 on my list is one of my favorite blockbusters of the year, and one that, again, caught me by surprise. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Now, I was not a big fan of the Planet of the Apes films when I was younger. I liked the original, but I was never a huge fan of any of the sequels. I never got sucked into the whole franchise. I did like Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and I thought, okay, I'd be open to seeing a sequel. I didn't love it, but I'd be open to seeing something like this again. I did not know the sequel was being made. I just wasn't aware of it for whatever reason until I started seeing trailers, and I was like, oh, well, okay, I guess I'll check it out. Why not? And this movie was so good. It was so good. And I've rewatched it since then. I'm like, yeah, it holds up. It was really, really good. It wasn't just the first time experience. This is a legit, very, very good movie. And what really makes the movie are the apes, who are so well constructed from a technical standpoint that they feel like they're really there on screen, on this set, and interacting with the humans in this movie. A lot of that has to do with great motion capture acting from the likes of Andy Serkis, who, I'm just going to throw this out there, him as Caesar is better than his Gollum. And I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but he is so good as Caesar. It's amazing. Like, every time he speaks, it feels important. Like, every time he does anything, it feels important. And everything, he just feels like a leader. And a lot of that is Andy Serkis' physical performance, which, okay, he can't be nominated for Best Actor because it's a CGI character, even though the CGI is basically his costume and makeup. I mean, it's really him doing all this crap. They take his facial expressions. He's there on set doing the motion capture. It's all him. He's doing the voice. He should be nominated, but whatever. And the CGI, I should mention, is so organic looking this time. I mean, okay, this movie got nominated for Best Special Effects. I would argue it should win, because those apes look amazing in this film. And it's all worked into this story about the relationship between the surviving humans and this ape society, and the whole movie just feels like a powder keg waiting to explode. And it kind of feels like the story's going to go one way, and I can kind of like, all right, I see where this is going, blah, 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 blah. But then they do something different with it, and it was they went into an interesting direction that I really liked. I'm trying not to give away spoilers here. But this was not an action movie. This is more of a character-based, emotional film, because they're really, as far as action goes, you get the one battle between the apes and the humans, and then you get the one-on-one fight at the end. And that's really all there is in terms of action. Other than that, it's pretty much a very character-based, emotional ride. And And I think to that end, it's very, very good. And I think the best way to sum this movie up, this is what Avatar, the James Cameron movie, not the TV show, the cartoon show. I never liked that movie, James Cameron's Avatar. I just thought it was like, it's like, all right, they took Pocahontas and made him Blue Thundercats, and that's your movie. And I never liked Pocahontas when I was a kid either. This movie, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, is what Avatar should have been. And I think it's better special effects, better story, better acting, and all around, it's just better. And Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, if you haven't checked it out, or if you're not a fan of the Planet of the Apes franchise, I still recommend it, because I think it is a very good film, and just very strong, and again, really caught me by surprise, and I definitely look forward to seeing what they do with sequels, because they're really not doing these films one on top of the other. They're kind of jumping around in the timeline, where it's like, the next film could start 20 years later after certain events have taken place. Again, I'm trying not to give away spoilers here, but and one thing I will say, the villain in this movie is very, very good and chilling at times. So, again, I'm not going to give away anything, but this movie just, again, caught me by surprise, and I'm very happy I saw it, because it is very, very, very good. Now, I would venture to say the best Planet of the Apes film I've seen, even better than the original. That's just my take on it. But number 3 on my list is another movie I loved a lot. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which I would say is probably the best Marvel movie to date. I know Guardians was very good. I know Avengers was very good, and the original Iron Man that kicked everything off was very good. But I think this Captain America film, holy shit! I mean, it was really, it was a shocker at points. And even when there's a point where I think I know I have one part of the story figured out, that's pretty obvious. When they get into like why everything is happening and what's going on, it takes everything into a whole nother direction that is just amazing and really elevates the film overall. But what really makes the movie more than that, you have this political drama going on, you have this evolving story, you have all these great action set pieces, but what really sets it apart are the interactions with the characters. I love Captain America's interactions with Falcon, and they really do seem like a legitimate friendship. I love the odd couple pairing of Captain America and Black Widow, because they could not possibly be any more different personality-wise, so to have them clash with each other and try to work together is just great, because she's a completely different, more soiled soul than Captain America is, who's this kind of Boy Scout type. And the Winter Soldier in this movie, he doesn't get a lot of screen time, but when he's there, it really matters, and he's scary. There are some scenes in there where he's legitimately chilling and kind of scary. And, it's a great action movie, it's a great political thriller, it's a great comic book superhero film. It really does have a little bit of everything, and it's very strong and very, very good. And as I've said, I think it's Marvel's best movie to date. And if Civil War delivers, Captain America Civil War, I think it would be safe to say that Captain America has the best superhero film trilogy of any superhero, which you would never expect that to be Captain America, but we're on path to having that. And Winter Soldier was amazing, and I loved it. And like I said, it's my favorite Marvel movie so far. So number 2 on my list, which will come as no surprise to anybody who's even remotely followed my videos. My number 2 favorite movie of the year was Godzilla. In fact, the shocking thing about that is that you're probably surprised I didn't put it at number 1. But Godzilla to me was, again, as I've said before, I'm a big monster movie fan. And when I was a kid, Godzilla was like the James Bond of monsters to me. He was just the ultimate icon of the genre. And I love the Godzilla movies. They're classics. I love the whole kaiju genre. I love giant monster movies, and Godzilla was just the king of all of that. And I've always wanted that big budget, American-made Godzilla film, and I think there was potential to do it and for it to be really good. The film in '98 pretty much killed those hopes, but after that movie came out and sank like a rock, I thought, well, there goes that dream. You're never going to get, and nobody's ever going to, no Hollywood studio is going to touch Godzilla again after that. It's like a Super Mario Brothers movie. Who's going to make another Super Mario Brothers movie after that shitty film came out in the early 90s? But Legendary Pictures got their hands on the property and made their movie, and I loved it. And it just brought back so many fond memories of watching these classic kaiju films, and the atmosphere was really good. And a lot of the things that people bashed about the movie were things I liked about it, namely the fact that Godzilla was not in the movie all that much. Because to me, it's not about showing off the monster all the time, it's about showing off the effect of what effect they have on society, and the effect that they have on humankind, and the destructive power of these things. And that was on full display, definitely. And every time Godzilla was on screen, they made every second count, and it was awesome. And that climactic battle at the end was amazing. And I should also say that the Mutos, his opponents in this film, while not the most original design, because they did look a lot like the Cloverfield monster, they were very well constructed special effects, which Godzilla not being nominated for Best Special Effects, that's bullshit. But I don't know how you overlook any of this, but they were so well constructed that I accepted them as foes to Godzilla, and it ended up with this giant kaiju battle at the end of the film that was just amazing, and one of the most exciting climaxes I saw all year. I loved every second of that. So, some people said the acting wasn't very good and the characters were kind of bland. I was okay with them. For the most part, they were just there to kind of serve their basic purpose of, repairing their family life or getting back to their spouse or trying to stop the monster, which is what a lot of these old movies do. I actually thought, God, I've forgotten his name. I'm drawing a blank. The Let Them Fight guy. I'm going to hate myself after I film this. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name. But he played Dr. Serizawa. And I thought his character was a lot like Dr. Loomis from Halloween, in that he's kind of the spokesperson for the monsters, and he understands them, and he knows everything about them. And I hope he comes back in the sequels, because he was a cool presence to me. Now, I do agree that Bryan Cranston was not in the movie enough. I felt like he actually should have been the main character. But when he was on screen, he was great. He's Bryan Cranston. He's just awesome. And I would have liked for him to be in the movie more. But that is not my criticism. Godzilla not being in the movie enough was not my criticism. But Bryan Cranston not being in the movie enough, that was my criticism. But overall, this just gave me so many good old school nostalgic feels about giant classic kaiju films and the Godzilla series. I felt like this film gave the monsters the weight and power of the original Gojira. It had kind of the formula of the 70s, like the basic story structure of the 70s Godzilla films, kind of the tone of the 80s and 90s, and with some Spielbergian touches throughout in how it was directed and the cinematography and everything. So it was just an all-around pleasing experience for me personally, and as a fan. And granted, I am a total biased fanboy, but that aside, I did really enjoy this movie, and it was definitely my favorite theater experience of the year. To be sitting in that theater opening night and to have that whole audience just erupt with applause for one of my favorite cinematic icons it was a great experience for me, and it really made me happy. So that's a memory that I'll always treasure. And of course, that same month, I got to see the original Gojira at a special screening, and I'd never seen the movie in a movie theater before, so I got to see my favorite monster movie of all time in a movie theater, and I got to see his big revival on his 60th anniversary film later that month as well. So that was also very cool. So it was a great year to be a Godzilla fan, which it's not always good being an American Godzilla fan, but this year it was. So I was definitely happy with that film. And then we got my favorite movie of the year, The Babadook. Now, good horror movies are hard to come by these days. I've made this point before. I am a horror movie fan, but I'm also very picky about my horror movies. you know, and it's very easy to screw them up. And I feel like I see way more bad ones now than there are good ones, because most of the horror movies that come out these days are either an unnecessary sequel, an unnecessary and shitty remake, torture porn, or just really stupid and insipid. Those are your choices for horror movies for the most part, but if you really search through, you'll find those good ones hiding around once in a while. I did see Oculus last year, which would have been on this list except for the fact that the movie was released in 2013. But I did see that, and I loved that movie and the things that they did with it and how scary it was through atmosphere and not using cheap jump scares all the time and not relying too much on violence and telling a great horrific story about how the events of this film affect the characters. And that's what it's supposed to be about. Because if you're just willy-nilly killing these one-note characters left and right, why should I care? What really makes great horror movies work is if you care about the characters, so when these horrible things happen to them and they have to really be in these terrible situations, it'll actually matter. The Babadook does a very good job of that and shows how, you know, this supernatural force, and I put that in quotations, really has the effect on this kid and his mother, and the terrible things that happen to them as a result, and how they react to it and how they deal with it. And really the whole thing is a big metaphor for depression and dealing with tragedy and loss. But the Babadook, the monster itself, and the effect it has on this family creates some really deeply disturbing scenarios and really horrible scenarios. And really, as you see the deteriorating mental state of the mother in this movie, she really turns from a Shelley Duvall character, for those of you who have seen The Shining, which is pretty much everybody, but she turns from a Shelley Duvall, and as the movie progresses, she turns more and more into a Jack Nicholson. So you really get both sides of that, where she's both the monster and the victim all at the same time. And again, it really plays into more of that metaphor of depression and the effect that it has on you if you don't know how to cope with it properly. And it was really a great subtle yet scary and atmospheric horror movie, and it was very good. And no, it's not about showing off the monster all the time. This is another movie that kind of got criticized for that, but no, it's about having that atmosphere, showing the effect of the monster, and being scary, creating suspense, but not, you know, picking the right moments to show, you know, when to really show off the monster and when really not to. And they never really do show off the monster, but they just show off the effect that it has. And there are so many scenes in this movie that are legitimately creepy. There's a scene where the mom's reading a pop-up book about the Babadook, and the scene of her reading a pop-up book is scarier than most of what I've seen in most horror movies in a good long while. And there was a lot of good moments like that in this movie. And Essie Davis, who is the lead actress in this film, who plays the mother. You want to talk Oscar snubs? She absolutely should have been nominated for Best Picture for her role in this, because if her acting is not top notch, this movie doesn't work. The movie relies on her as a backbone to make this whole story work, the whole setup work, because without her it doesn't work. And she did an outstanding job and gave an absolutely wonderful performance. And her not getting nominated for an Oscar is probably the biggest snub of the year, at least based on the movies I saw. But the Babadook, you know, in my never-ending search for good horror movies, I mean, I got two really great ones last year in Oculus, and then this film, The Babadook, which is my favorite movie of the year. It was great. It was wonderful. I'm going to start working both of those movies, Oculus and The Babadook. I'm going to start working both of those movies into my annual rotation of watching Halloween movies and you know, my monster movies and all that stuff every year. That's how much I love those films. So, and Babadook is number one. That is the best horror movie I've seen in a great long while, and it is so nice. It gives me hope for the horror genre when I see movies like this. And here's hoping we get more movies like that, because this movie did get a lot of critical acclaim. So here's hoping a lot more horror movies shape themselves more like that film, because that should be the new standard, really. What movies like The Babadook and Oculus 2. That should be the new standard for horror, and not so much, the same, just recycling the same stupid crap over and over and over and over and over again. But those are my favorite movies of 2014. Thank you all for listening. And I will be back sometime next week with a Royal Rumble review. And that'll be it for now. So until then, y'all have a good one.